Welcome to the You Love You LLC podcast, where everything self love will be discussed. And I've invited Will K here from Baltimore, Maryland, to share his experience, strength, and hope with us. So kick back, enjoy, put the comments below, like, subscribe, give us your feedback on everything self love and how you acquired it and everything. So, once again, I have Will K here from Baltimore, Maryland. Will, come in and share a little bit about how you started this journey.
My name's Will. From Baltimore, Maryland, and this journey started really early for me. I think I went to my first recovery meeting when I was about 15 years old. My dad caught me doing some things that I was not supposed to be doing, and his reaction was putting me in an IOP program and taking me to my first AA meeting. My dad was not messing around with this thing because he too was in recovery at one time. So yeah, that's how I got here.
Awesome. Well, appreciate a brief description. And what do you do now for an occupation, if you don't mind sharing, in
Sure,
general
yeah.
way?
So today, thanks to my higher power in the program, I am a licensed massage therapist in the state of Maryland.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I've developed a few questions and just we'll start from there. Wherever it goes, it goes. So I appreciate you being here.
Sounds good.
First question is, what has been the most important aspect of your self-love journey in maintaining sobriety?
Oh man, so most important aspect. Um, I would have to say patience, um, tolerance for my own BS, and I would
Is
have
that
to
BS? Let me interrupt you. Does that BS stands for belief system or another BS? No, come
no,
on.
definitely
I'm
another
sorry.
BS. Um, try to keep this as clean as I possibly can. I am from Baltimore.
It's it's an adult
I
show, sir. You can share anything that's on your heart.
okay. I would definitely say patience. Having patience for myself, and also I'm trying to think of the word self-compassion. Those two things right there are definitely the key aspect of my self-love. Um, yeah, those two things right there.
Wow, that's awesome. I didn't self anyway. I'll get back to that you just made the statement on. How has your recovery journey influenced your understanding and practice of self love?
That's a good question. Let's see. My recovery journey has definitely influenced my recovery journey and my practice of self-love. Um, Mainly like I don't know, through the steps and through working with others. Steps working with others, other alcoholics, like teaching me. Um, and now I feel like I understand self love in a way that I've never understood it before. I never had self love before, and today I do. So it's the things that I do, the actions that I take, that actually bring the
Can
understanding out within myself for self love.
you elaborate a little bit on the journey to obtaining self love? I heard you say that you just started self loving, and the reason I'm asking the question is because I too took me 59 years of living to realize that I didn't love myself. So I acknowledged that and I'd done some work, some shadow work, like you say, the 12 steps, working with a sponsor and all of those things to get me to this aspect and to find self love. And so if you could share a little bit about, your self love and how you came about that.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, I guess where it started, I guess I'd like to start with where I learned how not to love myself.
Yes.
Um, my mom was also an active alcoholic and a drug addict, amongst other things, and she left when I was about 3 years old, maybe four. I can vaguely remember her leaving, and I always used that as an excuse to like not love myself. 'Cause I felt like I was unlovable by my own mother. So if my mom couldn't love me, then who else could? And if no one else could love me, then why should I love myself? Um, and that kind of like progressed throughout my years. Once I found alcohol, then I used that to bury that feeling of, then I had the pseudo self-love where I thought I
Yeah.
loved myself. I thought I loved everybody because I was drinking, and doing other things. And then I found this program when I was 15. And then after that, I really wasn't about it until I got my first two DUIs. And then I really started taking this thing seriously. And then in my first rehab facility, I found God in a really big way. And it was at that rehab that I started learning that I didn't love myself. And what I
Wow.
needed to do was grow a relationship with a higher power in order for him to teach me how to love myself. So that's really where that's my journey in a nutshell of self-love.
Wow. That'll work. Yes, my journey as well came, I found coping mechanisms after being inappropriately touched at the age of 8. And I thought it was love at first, whatever it was, being 8 years old and experiencing those kind of emotional feelings and releases that I never should have never been introduced to. But I learned coping mechanisms, and along the way, alcohol and drugs came into play around junior high, and
Yep.
then it just sprung off from there. And before I know it, here it is 50 years later, and I'm out here doing all kind of self-sabotaging behaviors and causing all kind of issues. So I really appreciate you sharing that with me. What strategies or tools have you found most effective in navigating life's challenges while staying sober?
Number one, staying in touch with others, being like having that accountability is kind of big for me. Um, Prayer and meditation are also really big in my life, specifically meditation. I'm not always the best prayer, I should say, but I do try to make a conscious contact with my higher power at least once a day, whether it's right in the morning, throughout the day, at night. See, in my profession, I get told that I'm the best quite often.
Wow.
And I have to remind myself that I'm only doing my best, that I'm not the best. And every time I get a comment like that from a client, I thank my higher power. So
Mm.
in a way, my job really allows me to make that conscious contact, because if I don't make that conscious contact, I'm making a conscious disconnect. Another tool that I use is my sponsor. My sponsor is a huge tool, um, in more ways than one. I'm just Hopefully he won't. No, he's not a tool. Um, but yeah, it's just my contact with him has been this time around, because this is not my first go around in recovery. Has been insanely like instrumental to navigating my way through recovery. Without him, I don't know where I would be today, because we started working together right when my mom passed away.
Wow.
And I did not handle that in a recovery fashion. Let's say that.
Sorry for your loss, and I appreciate you sharing that about your sponsor and everything. So, for those that might not be aware of, a sponsor is someone that guides me through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous as they have guided Will. And in order to be a sponsor, they suggest that we work the program. They have worked the program, read the book, a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a text, the basic text for alcoholism and alcoholics that's suffering from alcoholism. So when referencing your sponsor and everything, I know for me, my sponsor guided me. He learned who I was through working the 12 steps, the fourth step, writing all my stuff down and then sharing some of my worst or my coping mechanisms now that I found out what they are. He kind of guided me and helps me avoid the pitfalls of everything. So we're talking about everything self-love and recovery. In what aspect would you say he helps you in that journey?
He reminds me to take it easy, not
Mm.
just in life, but on myself. When my mom passed away, there was a ton of guilt. There was a ton of shame because it wasn't just my mom passing away. It was my mom passing away and then me having a relapse. I was about like 5 months sober when she passed away, and it went bad faster than it ever had gone bad. And yeah, needless to say, I almost didn't make it out of that one. But yeah, he reminds me to take it easy on myself. He also reminds me on a daily basis to hand it over. And he says this a million times a month. If you're not willing, you have to be willing to be willing. And the only thing you have to do in this program is to be honest, open, and willing. And then if you're not willing, you gotta be willing to be willing.
That's excellent, you know, because in the third step, I believe in the 12 and 12, it talks about a higher power. And some people come in here referencing God, as I did when you referenced God. For me, I went right back to my old religious belief. And now today, I have a working relationship with a spiritual entity that's not the same judgmental God that's going to send me to hell. He gave me free will and then tells me if I don't do X, Y, Z, I'm going to hell. So I appreciate you sharing that. And the guidance and the nurturing and the getting to know one, you know, again, it's just a beautiful thing. The third step says if I just crack open the door of willingness, it that all I have to be willing is to turn it over to a power greater than myself. I have to have the willingness, as you said. And if I'm not willing to be willing, that's a beautiful statement. Your sponsor, a smart guy for sure. So I appreciate that. That's, you know, just to crack the door open to believe in a power greater than myself, to crack the door open into believing that a God, an entity, a spiritual being, someone can relieve me of the seemingly hopeless state of mind and body I'm in. It's just a beautiful thing. And so it even tells us that we can shut the door anytime we want to. So I appreciate that. Let's see, how has your perspective on living life on life terms evolved throughout your journey? And sometimes these might repeat or overlap. So if we want to skip one or say, hey, I answered that last time, is great for me. But either way, how has your perspective on living life on life terms evolved throughout your journey?
This is a really great question. So it evolved from thinking that life is happening to me
Mm.
into life is happening for me. I had a sponsor tell me that one time. He's like, dude, you know, you got to get off of the I have tos and get into the I get tos. And he also said a lot of the times be in the stream of life. Um, you know, so living life on life's terms, being in the stream, if you're not in the stream, then you're swimming against it. And if you're swimming against it, it's really easy to get tired. And we all, well, for those of us that do know HALT, the angry, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, watching out for those pitfalls for sure. And tired is one of my big pitfalls. It has been in the past. It still is to this day. When I'm tired or I'm hungry, I'm not the same human being that I am if all of those things are taken care of.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Again, for those that's listening, you know, we have different sayings that come in here. Easy does it. Don't get too hungry. Don't get too angry. For an alcoholic, it's been explained to me and in my life that I would drink over the large things, or I could stay sober through the large thing. It's the little gnats and the little pebble in the shoe that really gets me, crawls up under my skin. And resentments, as the big book talks about, is the number one offender. So hungry, angry, lonely, tired, any of those combinations will start me on a spin and I will lose track that, yeah, life is happening to me instead of for me. And that's an excellent analogy. I appreciate you for sure. Let's see. Can you share a specific moment or experience that tested your self love and sobriety and how you overcame it?
Yeah. I think I touched on it. Yeah, I definitely touched on it a little bit before. You know, my mom passing away was a really big one. It brought up a lot of, because I didn't get a chance. to speak to my mom before she departed this earth. She went into surgery. She made it through the surgery. When she got out of the surgery, she was nonverbal. So there was a ton of stuff left unsaid. And I had to put her on hospice, which is one of the hardest things to do, I think, for any human being, is to put their parent in hospice.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I was too busy trying to run around and get my fix of whatever was around, that I wasn't there for my mom when she passed away. So a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of self-hatred, that drove me into a suicide attempt. That whole situation did. I made it out of that suicide attempt, and then also there were some other things. I strayed away from my relationship with my fiance, and it was just, I made the biggest mess a person could absolutely make. And the amount of guilt, shame, and grief that I was going through, it like tested my self-love to, I don't know, it really tested my self-love. And the way I made it through that is just persistence. I just kept pushing forward. Um, I wrote letters to my mom. That was one of the ways that I got rid of that guilt and shame. I wrote letters, and I came across one of those letters just the other day, and like a lot of feelings came flooding back. But I just kind of, I was persistent. I did the work. I definitely put a lot of effort into it. Me and my fiance, we did couples counseling. We are doing absolutely fantastic today. And it just goes to show you, when you put in the work, you take the action, the amount of results that you get what you put into it. Here we are 8 months later after my mom passed away, and I'm sitting in my own house, that I pay the mortgage early, and I pay my BGE early, and we're living comfortably, not just in the relationship, but just in life in general.
That is awesome. Congratulations on the fiance and the house. And the hard work, you mentioned putting in the work. Can you give me a brief description of what work you're specifying, or what work you're
Yeah.
referencing?
Those actions are prayer and meditation, working the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, going to meetings every day. I'm at a 6 a.m. meeting every morning, no matter what. I haven't missed a 6 a.m. meeting in probably over 2 years. Even though I, would fall off the wagon, I'd pick my ass up and I'd take it to a meeting, even if it was falling off. And making sure that I'm staying in contact with other alcoholics. Staying in contact with newcomers is also a great way. Another action that I take when I see a newcomer in a meeting in their first 30 days, I always send them a private message in the chat and giving them my number, and then I either shoot them a text, have them text me, and then I talk to them throughout the day. I check up on them. I follow up for about like 2 weeks. And then after that 2 weeks, then in those 2 weeks, I start praying for him. And then after those 2 weeks, I have a tendency to kind of drop off, because then newcomers come in. And I'm working with those people. And then, of course, then God kind of drops them into my head. Oh, yeah, well, what about this guy? And then I check in with them. And, 9 out of 10 times, if they're doing the program, they're still sober. So yeah, those are the actions. That's the work that I put in today in order to stay sober myself.
I think the big book says we have a daily reprieve, long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. And I think you've heard me. We both met at the 6 a.m. Zoo Crew 22 meeting. I guess I'll reference it for sure in case someone needs a meeting. There's an app called Everything AA app. But getting back to the work and staying in contact and all of those things, I've shared a little bit about my story, where November of 2022, I went through a divorce and ended up back in Houston, and had a terrible run for about 10, 15 days. And that led me down working some steps, going to a 28-day detox, 28-day PHP, finding a 3-quarter house, finally, eventually finding this apartment. And that's where my work came in. I started working the steps, and I ended up doing shadow work and just a bunch of journaling. Like you referenced, prayer and meditation is the key for me today. I've worked my 12 steps, and my sponsor says that there's some other A's that you could probably go to. And I ended up thinking about Sexual Anonymous, but I found another spiritual program which introduced me to myself. So, man, putting in the work is working the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, contacting the newcomers, staying, working my steps on a regular basis, and staying in touch with a sponsor and going to a meeting a day. So great response. Move on unless you have anything else. But I know
No.
you mentioned prayer and meditation, and that is a key to me. Journaling is definitely a key. I noticed you wrote a few letters, and that writing, I always share that there's a nerve that goes from my fingertip to my brain. And as long as the stuff runs around in my head, that it's fiction and I can adjust it, make it as worse as it can be. I can make it as good as it can be. But when I put it on paper, I have something concrete that I can look at and it becomes fact. And then I can do things about it. So thank you so much. Okay. In what ways has your childhood trauma, if any, played a role in your recovery and self love journey?
Yeah. So there was definitely some sexual trauma as a kid, very, very, very young. And it carried through my entire life. I felt like I was a dirty human being up until maybe, honestly, up until I made it to my 4th or 5th rehab facility back in 2021. Yeah, 2020 or 2021. So from the age of like 5 years old, from when I had my first memories, when the sexual trauma happened, all the way up to 2021 to 2020, I carried this burden with me that I just felt like just unworthy of love. I felt like I could only keep people at a certain distance. I didn't allow very many people in all the way. The relationship that I have today is the first relationship that I've ever had where I truly feel like I let that person in 100%. And even that has been a struggle in this relationship. I think that only started happening maybe 6 months ago, if that. So it's been hard. It's definitely been that sexual trauma that happened when I was a kid. It's taken therapy. It's taken a lot of work with therapy and my therapists. And I say therapists because I've had multiples throughout the years. And we say here in the program, outside help for outside issues. And I'm a big advocate for people who have outside issues to get that outside help, because AA is for dealing with alcoholism.
Yes.
And we all, like, I can't say we all, but I would say a good percentage of alcoholics have outside issues, because we all made a mess. That's for damn sure.
That's absolutely correct. And yes, as you, I have relapsed quite a few times. Counselors, therapists, training, knowledge. When I first came in here, I thought knowledge would keep me sober, and knowledge of this program did not keep me sober. It did not keep me out of crack houses. Um, Education, even knowing the program, none of that stuff worked until it all became as one. Bill's story in the very beginning of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the doctor's opinion says we suffer from a threefold disease: spiritual, physical, mental. Once we remove the alcohol from our body, then the physical part is removed, and then we can work on the spiritual and mental part. And yes, outside issues do plague most alcoholics. And if I didn't get in touch with mine, I'll keep it to myself then. I would still be out there using the coping mechanisms, the sexual chasing of people and the release and all of the things, the coping mechanisms, the alcohol, the drugs, the lying, stealing, cheating, all of the things that I used to survive to be 59 years old and start journaling about these things and getting in touch with myself. Fortunately, while journaling one day, I wrote the word you and why, and the O looked like a heart and a U. And so this has all developed from the day of journaling and being in touch with a spiritual power greater than myself and all of those things. So childhood trauma came out through my journaling. Childhood trauma came out through the therapies. And as you are in a relationship, my current relationship has developed because I'm a whole person today. I took the time and did the work, as you said, to become a whole person. So, man, excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay, how do you prioritize self care and self love in your daily life as someone in long term recovery? Did I just ask you that?
No, you did not. No.
Okay, all right. So, how
Yeah.
do you prioritize?
How do I prioritize self-care and self-love? Well, I'd like to say that I put myself first, but that's a struggle all in itself, because I have a tendency to put others before myself. Um, but yeah, for those who are, in long-term recovery, um, you got to put your own oxygen mask on first. You got to take care of yourself. Then, in my opinion, and this is also the opinion of many others that I've come in contact with, is you gotta prioritize yourself, your relationship with your higher power, your program, and then everything else falls after that. As long as you put those three things first, the rest will take care of itself. Um, the family, the job, all of that kind of stuff just kind of really does take care of itself. That's been insanely true in my life. As long as I put those things first, no matter what, and no matter how it may affect other people, eventually, somehow, some way, everything else just kind of works out. I'm in the best job of my life right now. I'm happier than I've ever been, making more money than I've ever been. And it's not about the money, but it's still like, um, best job that I've ever had, and the best relationship that I've ever been in. I'm a father figure to two really amazing kids. And all of that is impossible without putting those three things first. So self, relationship with a higher power, and your program.
That allows me to spin off on another one, which I know someone might be asking, and I've received the same questions. So I was considered selfishness. I was considered selfish. I'm out there drinking, drugging, doing what I do. And so when I come into the program, and page 62, let me just reference that. Page 62 says selfishness and self centeredness is the root of all our troubles. And I suffer from 100 forms of fear. But what would you say to the family members that say, well, wait a minute? And I'm going to use the word you so SOB. You spend all this time out there drinking, drugging, away from the family. You've done all of this stuff. And now you're telling me that you have to go to these meetings and you have to help other alcoholics when they call and all of these things. It seems like you're still taking care of yourself. When are you going to take care of the family? And you explained that without that, then all the other, none of the other stuff matters. But if you could tell something about how do you explain that to your family members, that and look, these are things I got to do, and if I don't do these, none of y'all matter to me, and things of that nature. Share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so actually, I had a sponsor, and my current sponsor and my previous sponsor before that, both had issues with that very thing. They were both married to normies, or people who don't drink or can drink just one beer, and or leave a half a glass of alcohol on the table.
Not my case.
Those kind of people, yeah, those people. God love them. But
Sorry.
they they leave. They made sure, and they make sure that there is at least 1 or 2 days that are dedicated to the family. Yes, and another thing that my previous sponsor said, make a meeting schedule. If you make a meeting schedule, even though like it may be scheduling time with the family, but that shows the family that they are a part of your priorities. So if you make a meeting schedule, your family knows exactly when and where you're going to be where, so they know exactly when and where they can be, when their time is going to be. There's always going to be time for them. It's just that these things have to happen in order for that time to even be available. So that's kind of how it was explained to me. I'm lucky my fiance is also in recovery, so that's not even a thing for us. But I have seen that in other families, and I think that's the best way to kind of like let them know that they're still a part of the priority list.
Now that gives me a chance to spin off on another question. It's not even on the list. Both of y'all in recovery. When do you have your own time? And first off, thank you for that, because I've learned something just then. Because I've told family members and all of my people, man, look, I wouldn't care what goes on. I'm going to take care of me. I'm going to a meeting that again, that selfishness and self-centeredness drawn a stick in the line. Like, no, I ain't scheduled no meetings with y'all or anything. I'm going to my meetings and we'll talk afterwards. So you've given me some some pointers on what I should do in my current relationship and with the family members of my own family. So I appreciate that. How do you and your wife balance, if your fiance balance meetings and all of these things, if you care to share that with us?
Yeah, sure. So we both attend a 6 a.m. meeting every morning. We take care of it early, and then on a really on good days, right after the meeting, we take a walk with the dog. And then after we come home from walking the dog, we lay in bed, we hold hands, and we meditate together. Then usually we take time a little bit after the meditation to kind of just sit there and let that sink in, connect with our higher power. And then we move throughout our day. And then we also have a calendar, and I need to get better about using the calendar. I'm not the greatest at looking at it. I'm not the greatest at writing things down on it, but I'm working on it. But we have a calendar that's color coded, that we write the things that we are doing, the things that we need to do, the appointments that we have. That way we both know how and when we can schedule time for ourselves. And ourselves, and then of course, like making time for the entire family, things that we can all do together. So yeah, having a calendar, having a schedule, and taking care of that stuff early in the morning. Of course, you put your recovery first in the first part of your day. 9 out of 10 times, the rest of the day turns out. Or is every day perfect? Of course not. We're in a relationship. Like every day is not going to be, sunshine and roses. But because of the program, those days don't turn into weeks, and those weeks don't turn into months of just shit. You know what I mean? It's usually just one day, maybe one day, and a wake up, and then the next morning we wake up, we do it all over again, and it's a new day. So that's how
Wow. So y'all attend the same meeting?
No, it's two different meetings.
Because I'm getting ready to say, wait a minute, you've been hiding something from me. I've been in that 6 a.m. meeting every morning, and I haven't met your fiance. Not that I'm that important in your life, but anyway, thank you.
Meeting, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's going to be interesting because, of course, my previous relationships and previous times trying to stay sober, I needed that own space for me to be able to share exactly what's going on in my life, whether it was about my fiance or my girlfriend or my ex-wife or whatever it was. So that's why I asked that question. I was kind of poking a little bit to see what I need to do in my future.
And another thing that really helps us, and we've been doing this for quite some time, is maybe we used to do it every day, and we've kind of like spaced it out now, because it's easier to like have more to say when you do it every once in a while sporadically. But every once in a while we will do an emotional, a physical, and a mental check-in with each other, just via text. Just allows us to know what's going on in our heads, how we're feeling physically, and then how we're feeling emotionally in the relationship. If there's any issues that we need to talk about, like, I don't know, that's brought us closer together than anything that we've done as a couple in recovery.
Well, I'm going to take you because I just, as you know, I kind of announce under quietly. I haven't actually proposed, but I do have not a prospect. Hell, I have a fiance,
Right.
and the just the aspect of sharing and trying to develop that relationship. My sponsor told me that, man, if you're looking for how do you put it? I'm laughing because it was so funny to me yesterday, and I shared it with my fiance that he says, if you're looking for marriage counseling, I'm not the one. I can't help you in 12 steps. He said, I married my counselor 6 months out of treatment and it didn't work too well. So if you're looking for guidance as a sponsor in your relationship, go somewhere else because I can't help you. So I'm gonna lean on you quite a bit because you're ahead of me in this situation. And I'm laughing because I'm excited. It's amazing how two comes as one and the different personalities and the communication skills. So I told you I'd get silly in this thing sometimes. So it's a beautiful thing, though. Love is a beautiful thing, and it can
It really
happen. And
is.
if I show up as 100% me, I never knew life would be so easy, man. I truly believe in the last year for sure. I'm 100% me. I share my feelings. My feelings is valid, and their feelings are valid.
Right.
And so I have to be able to sit down and listen. See, because I was like, yeah, okay. Shoot. But what about me? So fortunately, the 12 steps of program individuals, as you sharing your experience, strength, and hope with me, I can learn from that. You didn't tell me, well, this is what you got to do in your relationship. You said, this is what we do. And that makes a mega difference in the recovery process. So thank you so much. And I can just go on and on, but let's. This one here, I think you've answered, but what advice would you give to others who are struggling with maintaining their sobriety while also practicing self love?
Yeah, I'll answer it like I kind of answered it before, but I'm going to answer it again in a different way. And it's going to be one statement: just keep coming back and don't leave 5 minutes before the miracle happens. If you fall off the wagon, you fall off the horse, dust yourself up, get your ass to a meeting and share about it. That's the best advice that I can give.
Thank you so much. How has the concept of forgiveness, both of oneself and others, been instrumental in your journey of self love and recovery?
That was a tough one, especially during this past debacle of going to Texas and putting my mom in hospice and all the mess that I caused with it. Um, it took a really long time for me to forgive myself for the things that I did. Um, and then, of course, then I had to forgive my mom, who wasn't even here anymore, for the things she did before she passed away. Because there was a whole bunch of mess with her passing that happened that was done by her. I mean, she lied, cheated, and manipulated until the day she died, unfortunately.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and then the other aspect that's not even in this question is other people forgiving me
Mm.
and feeling worthy of that forgiveness. Um, and my fiance said, I'll never forget. She said this. She goes, I forgive you, but I will never forget this, and I'm not over it yet. Um,
Yes.
and I don't think that's quite over either. You know what I mean? There's definitely forgiveness there, and I feel forgiven, and I finally feel like I'm worth that forgiveness. And I finally have forgiven myself for it. But occasionally something will trigger it, and then I fall right back into that unforgivable feeling. Um, and then it's just expressing it to other people, telling my fiance when I feel that way, telling my sponsor when I feel that way, and then them just talking me off the ledge. Usually, my fiance can just say one thing, and whether whether it be, I'm still here, or I'm not giving up, or whatever she says, usually talks me off the ledge. My sponsor, of course, he just, dude, you just gotta just let it pass and take it easy on yourself. Um, you are forgivable, you are lovable, and it's just that reminder of those things that kind of help me kind of get over the forgiveness and the unforgivable feeling that I'm not forgivable.
Well, I don't know if you've heard my portion on that, but joining, I took a 6 weeks course, which took me 6 months to finish, daily journaling, night, morning, and all of those things. But one of the things I learned along the way was that I was to change hands on brushing teeth. I was to look myself in the mirror and tell myself every morning at least 30 times that I'm lovable, I'm loved, I love me, and look myself in the mirror and look myself in the eyes and tell myself that I'm loved, I'm loving, I'm lovable, I love you, and I love you, Wendell, and I love you, and I love you statements and affirmations and all of those things. Trust me, when you talked about putting in the work, I put in some work. I was 5, 6 months here in this apartment every day, every weekend by myself, journaling, learning about me. So forgiveness is a big thing. And if I could suggest, or if it works for you or not, it works for me that I get up every morning and I look myself in the mirror, in the eyes, and say, man, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. I'm loved. I'm loving. I'm lovable. And I repeat that. That's the second thing I do besides waking up grateful. And I know you do the grateful list and things of that nature. And I wake up truly humbled that I get to see another day and that I'm grateful. Then I go to the bathroom, look myself in the mirror, and then I do all the other things that the prayer, meditation, and journaling and things. So thank you so much for forgiveness. Forgiveness is the key. I had to acknowledge first that I didn't forgive myself. And then I had to start taking the steps to do that. So appreciate it. The last question: what does the phrase you love you mean to you in the context of your sobriety and self love journey?
So I read this question right when right before I read through all the questions, and this is the last question that I read. And I was sitting here thinking, and I was just like, man, this is really interesting. So when I see the phrase, you love you, I first see you love, meaning you love others. And
Mm,
then you break it down to love you love yourself. So it's like, what are those things called when like you can like put it, you can say it the same way forwards and backwards? I
maybe
can't
an
remember.
oxymoron or something. No, that's same thing, different meanings.
Yeah, but listeners, you probably know what we're talking about. But anyway, yeah, it's um, you can say it you love, and then you can say it love you. So yeah, like that's definitely what it means in the kind of the context of my sobriety. If you love others and you love yourself, like pretty much the most powerful energy in the world, I think, in my opinion, is love. So if you can love yourself and you can love others, even if you feel like they're unlovable or if you don't like them, but you still treat them with love, um, I'm a big firm believer in um, like universal energies and whatever you put out in the
Yes,
world, like you're gonna
yes,
get
yes.
back that kind of stuff. So if you if you give out love, keep that self love in for yourself, pretty much everything else kind of works out. Your encounters with other people, whether it's good or bad, treating that situation with love. Like you walk out of that situation feeling positive instead of feeling negative. Um, it's a lot of give and take when it comes to love. But in my opinion, it's more give and give.
Wow.
You give it, you give it, you give it, you give it, and the more you give, the more you get back.
So now I have a question. Do you think that couples should bring 50-50% to the relationship, or do I have to bring 100%? They have to bring 100%. That makes 100%. That's something totally off the cuff, but I
I
got to
think
ask you.
I think 100 and 100 makes 100.
Absolutely.
Undoubtedly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not like Terrence Howard says 1 × 1 = 2. We're not going down there.
Right,
You
right,
can
right.
tell I listen to the internet way too much, so I have to get out of self. Will, this has just been a fantastic experience for me. I appreciate you. We have Will K here from Baltimore, Maryland, shared his experience, strength, and hope with us on everything self-love. And if you don't love yourself today, find a way. Contact somebody, contact me. I'll have my information in here. Drop me a line, make a comment on the video, like, subscribe, all of those good things that all the other podcasters like to say. But for me, if you got something out of this, we've done our job today. Will, is there any last closing remarks you'd like to say about everything self-love, recovery, the cat down the road, or anything?
Yeah, I guess the last thing I would have to say is, I'll tell my spiel on meditation really quick. I think meditation is a muscle. You got to start small, because a lot of people say, "Oh, I can't meditate," but everybody in the world can worry. And if you're good at worrying, you be good at meditation, because worrying is just focusing on the negative, and meditation is just focusing on the breath, or the positive. Meditation is like brushing your teeth. You can go a couple days without brushing your teeth, but do you want to face society with stinky breath? You can go a couple days without meditation, but do you really want to face society with a stinky attitude? So that's my spiel on meditation. Do it. It works wonders. Just start small.
So thank you so much. I think we talked a little bit about meditation. And for me, at any given time of the day, I learned two things about meditations. That, of course, starting off, when I sit down, the thoughts are going to rush in. And one of my mentors taught me to think of the thoughts and see them as little clouds, and they kind of float in and float away, and then focus back on my breathing, where I focus on breathing in through my nose, down to my stomach, and back out through my mouth. Because if I breathe into my chest, my body produces a chemical like fight or flight. But when I breathe into my belly, it gives me a calming notion. So one deep breath in through the nose, down to the belly, and back out at any given time of the day. 3 of those, you can start your day over again, as the steps promises, and everything seems to work out better. So yesterday's troubles or worries, we're living in them today, and they didn't kill us out. So thank you once again, Will, for sharing your time with us. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to make this thing happen one person at a time. We're going to spread love, self-love throughout this world, one day at a time. So thank you so much.
No problem.